Now you can listen to Wine and Dine Radio while shopping at the grocery store or your neighborhood wine merchant. Wine and Dine Radio can be heard using your wireless internet on your cell phone. You're listening to iWineRadio. iWineRadio is a production of Food Tastes Better with Wine on the web at iWineRadio.com. Hey guys, I thank you for listening to iWineRadio, and we are still the only wine channel on iTunes Radio. If you go look under iTunes radio icon and scroll down to News and Talk Directory, and it's listed alphabetically, click on that and the stream comes up immediately. iWineRadio.com, where you can find links to individual guests. And if anyone's interested in advertising or becoming an underwriter or sponsor, please contact us at iWineRadio.com. We really, really appreciate your support. The more support we get, the more conversations I can have with fascinating people around the world, including you. If you have a story to tell that you'd like to share on iWine Radio, go to iWineRadio.com and contact us, and we'll go from there.
Hello, I'm Gianpaolo Paterlini, the wine director at Acquerello Restaurant, and I'd love to have you come into the restaurant so we can taste some wines together.
Buongiorno, this is Suzette Gresham-Tognetti, chef and co-owner of Acquerello Restaurant in San Francisco. Please come in and dine with us whenever you can.
Today we're going to learn about a restaurant that is over 20 years old. It's kind of a landmark in San Francisco on Sacramento Street called Acquerello. The focus, wine-wise, is on the Piedmont region, so let's say northern Italy, even though they have on the wine list wines represented from all over the world. And joining us today on Wine and Dine is the executive chef and co-proprietor Suzette Gresham-Tognetti and the wine director Gianpaolo Paterlini, who has really grown up in the restaurant, I might say. Gianpaolo, is that correct? I mean, your father is co-proprietor along with Suzette, and I would imagine that you kind of learned everything as a child hanging around the kitchen.
Yeah, I started working at the restaurant when I turned 14, so I got an early start in the industry, and I've worked there on and off for the last 12 years.
Suzette, I see that you have been at the restaurant since 1989. What year was the restaurant founded?
1989.
It was the same year, okay. Wow. Well, this must be, for someone to stay at the same restaurant for this length in a career, that this must provide a tremendous amount of satisfying your creative outlet. You must be very, very satisfied there, because a lot of times people get bored at the same location.
I think that it's different for us. I mean, on the negative side, you might feel slightly sequestered because you are, holding the helm at your own, establishment. But on the other hand, there is a great deal of growth and transition that's occurred. I can tell you quite honestly that I have at least recreated myself 3 different distinct times in our past, not to mention the great honor I've had in raising other cooks into chef status. Yeah,
I want to ask you about that. As I understand, you're very, very serious about mentoring people who have just graduated from culinary school, and you've had 55 interns or externs in the kitchen with you. Talk to us about this culinary presence, what you try and teach, culinary presence and survivorship, that people really don't get that sort of insight in culinary programs.
I'm very passionate about that actual experience that I provide. I'm extremely and immensely proud of Mark Pensa, our current chef de cuisine. I think he embodies what I've tried to do. He stayed with us almost 5 years, which is a long time in the industry in this day and age. I think the younger generation often underestimates the value of spending time in one place and unfairly flirts around and almost toys with their own future based on those lack of experiences that time in one place teaches you. The mentoring is very important to me. We have externs now. We've always had externs. I think that it gives us a chance to pay back to the industry in a manner which you might have think of, and that's perpetuance of the future, keeping your standards high, teaching someone what it's like to not have to be a total jerk, perhaps, and convey an idea without losing sight of what your goals are. It's very hard to maintain everything at the same time.
I just had a thought that occurred to me. What is your take on Anthony Bourdain's original book that came out, Kitchen Confidential, that was so cynical about what went on in the kitchen? It's
very bad to ask me, someone of my age, about that book. I almost couldn't read it because it was what I lived. And it's never a truer word. He didn't really misrepresent. And our industry, I'm so happy to say, has progressed beyond that point.
So he did the industry a service by outing with that book.
I think it was a reality check. I think it was what we needed to hear sometimes to get ourselves back on a better path. Okay, that's really cool. I've had the pleasure of talking to him a couple times, and he almost reminds me of Randall Graham in the food industry, with respect to culinary professionals. So dinner at Acquerello, people have three different options: a prefix menu, a classic menu, and a seasonal tasty menu. How did you come about developing this strategy of three different offerings for people? Well, with much gratitude to our management team, I think between my partner, Gianpaolo Paterlini, Gianpaolo's dad, much with Gianpaolo's input, and Mark Pence and myself, we have evolved to, I think, a very happy place of realizing, respecting, and honoring the past while we move forward. And I think what's especially nice about Acquerello is we're not staid. We don't stand and rest on laurels of the past. We really challenge and risk and try and move forward without being trendy, without losing sight of our classic roots, nor, the foundation of Italian's cuisine, which coming to America is already slightly reinterpreted, if you will.
Yeah.
So in a roundabout way, that's, I think, where we're going.
Well, let me switch gears here now and ask Gianpaolo, you have 2,000 bottles in the cellar, 20-plus wines by the glass, 70 wines by the half bottle, and a very serious after-dinner selection of sweet wines. And you're a student of this whole of wines. I mean, you spend a lot of time studying and thinking about how you're gonna talk to people and present wines. And I would think Suzette and her team, they put together different foods all the time, so you're constantly having to come up with new ideas.
Yeah, being involved with wine is really exciting because it's a constant challenge and always learning something new, whether it's finding a new wine that I've never tried before or just experiencing the way a wine changes a dish as a pairing. It's really important to keep an open mind, and it really keeps you on your toes.
Did you go to culinary school yourself? Besides working at the restaurant since you were 14 years of age and you're now 26, did you have any formal training, or was the formal training in the restaurant?
I worked a couple other places as well. I worked at Michael Mina for a couple years. Oh, yeah. Locally, I worked at A16 and Sushi Ron as well. So I've had some other experiences, but I went to school for a business degree. I spent time at both Boston University in their hospitality program.
Oh, yeah.
And I finished my degrry here in the city at USF with a focus on hospitality. So some formal training.
Oh, yeah, a lot of formal training. And why? What was it growing up that you decided you wanted to pursue a career in wine versus a specific career in the kitchen cooking?
Honestly, I had no idea that I was going to end up in this industry. When I turned 21, I started working at Michael Mina as a somm, as sort of an internship, and I just fell in love with it immediately. No one ever told me when I was growing up that I could work with wine professionally. I don't think that's really what a lot of parents want their kids to aspire to. But it just ended up working out really well. I loved what I was doing at Michael Mina and haven't looked back since.
Lynn, I have to interject something, if I might. And I think that Gianpaolo has inherited a trait like his dad, and that's a sense of humility. What you're not hearing from him is his level of commitment and passion, and it wasn't something that just started yesterday. He is one of the few people I've seen at his age who spends every waking moment thinking about food and wine, every penny. He's traveled and worked with Italian winemakers repeatedly. He searches out new regions where he's never been or experienced those particular wines and food combinations. He's eaten in Tokyo and the other places of the world that give you perspective on food This is a different type of education that doesn't show up on the resume, that doesn't, have a college degree tied to it, that's vital to what he does.
Yes, I totally agree. Thank you for adding that. That makes a huge difference. Have you ever had a dessert wine that is sourced from the island of Pantelleria?
Pantelleria, we cook with that as well.
Yeah, okay. I
save the good stuff for us, though.
Really? Because I just hung up with my friend Becky Sue Epstein, who is an international writer about wine and spirits, and she's writing a book on dessert wines, and she's there right now, and she was saying it's unbelievably harsh climate there.
Well, but
it's a crazy place.
Go ahead. I just was going to add that we also cook with the Moscato de Pantelleria. Back in the day, before Gianpaolo was even at the helm, we make an orange zabaione that's one of my signature dishes that we resurrect from time to time because people ask us, "Oh, can you make a zabaione?" And of course, that's a classic pairing with the Moscato de Pantelleria. So yes, on my side as well as his, and he does keep a good stash of Vinsanto that I am totally aware of, but don't always get to try.
Gianpaolo, go ahead.
Yeah, Pantelleria is a crazy island. It's technically part of Italy, but it's much closer to Africa. So that's the climate is nothing like what you'd find in other parts of Italy.
Yeah, that's what you said.
But Moscato, as they call it there, Zibibbo, is a really awesome dessert wine. Just delicious stuff.
Talk to us about Nebbiolo grape. Was the focus when your father was at the wine helm also Nebbiolo, or did you decide to go in that direction?
No, it was always the focus. My dad always had a passion for Nebbiolo, and I definitely inherited that over time. It's just an incredible grape that's very complex and very mysterious. It can be very much like Pinot Noir, but it can be a lot like something bigger like Cabernet as well. It's got so many different attributes, and just opening a bottle and sitting with it for an hour, it's always an experience. The wine keeps unfolding layer after layer of flavor and texture. So it's a wine that I don't think I'll ever fully understand, which is probably why I like it so much.
Yeah. Okay, another question here, because I understand that you do have wines from California. I don't want to say heaven forbid, but do you have any Nebbiolo wines from California on the wine list?
We don't, although there are some that I definitely have enjoyed over the years. We currently don't have any Calatal wines on the list.
Okay.
We decided to focus on what California does that we can't get in Italy.
Oh, that makes I second that. That makes so much sense. Well, I would like to thank you so very much, Suzette Gresham-Tognetti, who's the executive director and co-owner of Acquerello, and Gianpaolo Paterlini, who is the wine director. It's been a real pleasure meeting you today on Wine and Dine.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
We will have links up for you to learn more, and the website's really cool. Beautiful pictures, and if you haven't eaten there, and you're out in San Francisco, this is a must-do. Acquerello. You're listening to Wine and Dine. Now you can listen to Wine and Dine Radio while shopping at the grocery store or your neighborhood wine merchant. Wine and Dine Radio can be heard using your wireless internet on your cell phone. You're listening to iWineRadio. iWineRadio is a production of Food Tastes Better with Wine, on the web at iWineRadio.com. Hey guys, I thank you for listening to iWineRadio, and we are still the only wine channel on iTunes Radio. If you go look under iTunes radio icon and scroll down to news and talk directory, and it's listed alphabetically, click on that and the stream comes up immediately. iWineRadio.com, where you can find links to individual guests. And if anyone's interested in advertising or becoming an underwriter or sponsor, please contact us at iWineRadio.com. We really, really appreciate your support. The more support we get, the more conversations I can have with fascinating people around the world, including you. If you have a story to tell that you'd like to share on iWineRadio, go to iWineRadio.com and contact us, and we'll go from there.